Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Dawes County Board of Commissioners work session. Today is Thursday, January the 20th, 2022. We appreciate those that are here with us in the room as well as those that are with us online. We'll get right into the new business. First up, we have presentation of request to accept 2022 Criminal Justice Coordinating Council K-9 grant, Sheriff's Office Chief Deputy Greg Rowan. Greg.
Let's see, this is the normal, I'll call it normal at this point, K-9 grant that we apply for every year. It provides $204 for essentially a portion of the salaries for two K-9 handlers. So we've had this grant again since like 1998, 99, something like that, just a continuation. So, any questions on that?
Questions for Greg? Any questions for Greg?
You just routinely apply and just bam.
You know, yes, ma'am. It's I don't know. I hate to, I'm gonna do some knocking on wood here, cross my fingers, but we've been very lucky with that. I'm really surprised that we still have it, to be honest with you, just because of the cutbacks and whatnot, but we still have it. Got it for another year, if you know.
And no
acceptance.
marriage, no marriage.
No, well, it just covers a portion of the salaries, actually the majority of the salaries for these folks. So we fill in the gap.
It's in their
there
budget.
with that. So,
Okay.
yes, ma'am. It's within our internal budget.
And you need this to be moved to the voting session,
Yes, sir.
correct?
Please,
So that you can
yes.
get it sent in?
Yes, sir.
Y'all good with that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm good.
All right. I think you got the next one too, Greg. Presentation of request to accept highway enforcement of aggressive traffic heat grant.
Yes, sir. And it's a similar, it's an application we filled out. We had the heat grant last year. It's relatively new and it is a traffic enforcement related grant. It's been very successful from the standpoint of reducing accident numbers and fatalities and things like that. So it's definitely worth its while. And the amount there that we were awarded essentially is $107,765.34. And this is one of those fiscal year grants, whereas the K-9 grants are calendar year. But so we're just, again, asking you all to accept this grant and also place it on the agenda for the vote today.
Questions for Greg?
How much is it?
107,765.34.
Questions for Greg?
Did I read this was something about aggressive driving?
It
Yeah.
involves,
Yeah, we've got a lot of aggressive.
no, I'm
driving.
telling you, you're right. It's crazy. It's getting worse. Too. It's getting worse and it's going to get worse. I don't know. I don't know if it's, who knows? I mean, we could,
I mean, they're just mad. They're just. mad,
Yeah.
And they just run. I don't know.
You do.
Something's happening.
it is. There's something in the water, as they say. I mean, it really is. I mean, it sounds corny to say that, but yeah, because I've noticed, I've done this a long time now and I've noticed a huge change in the quality of traffic violations, if you will. So a lot more aggressive folks
I
out there
wish we could double that.
too.
Don't you?
Me too.
And we could put more out.
Well, this provides for 2 officers and some equipment and things like that. So it's, yes, ma'am. We have 2 officers assigned to this currently. So, and that's all they do is DUI stops, aggressive traffic stops, things like that. They work drug interdiction. So that's all they do. I mean, they'll answer emergency calls if they need to, but primarily that's traffic enforcement.
Is speeding part of aggressive driving?
Well, it's part and parcel to the.
Depending on how
charge of
fast they're
that.
going.
So, yeah, it is. There's a lot of factors with that. And how, I mean, you can be running 70 in a straight line and then run 70 and go back and forth and weave in and out of traffic. I'm just using that random number,
Yeah.
but so it does make a difference on how you're driving, I guess.
Well, we got a lot of that going on.
I know. Trust me.
Well,
I
not
know.
weaving in that traffic,
Well,
but
yeah.
about getting run over just to
Mhm.
get down your driveway.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm telling
Yes,
you.
ma'am. I know. I know.
Other questions for Greg? Y'all good with moving that to the voting session as well?
Yeah.
All right. Greg, thank you.
Thank y'all.
Next up, presentation of request to accept FY 2022 Victims of Crime Act Grant, District Attorney Lee Dare. Lee.
Yeah, good to see you all. I think this is the continuation of the funds. Y'all voted for it in October. We're just doing the final paperwork here to approve Katie's position. And Katie, in part of what she does, when there's aggressive drivers injure people, she helps them get the compensation that they're in the
Victim. She's
Yeah,
victim.
Advocate.
victim advocate.
Okay.
And she does mostly victims comp. And for the year 2021, we assisted 1,586 victims with the victims comp grant.
Wow.
This is a no match grant. And y'all have always done this before. And it's unfortunately, it's not through VOCA anymore. It's now through the fiscal year 2022 coronavirus emergency supplemental funding application. That used to go through VOCA, and now it's being funded by this organization instead of VOCA.
As long as they're
It's the same
funding it,
thing.
that's the main thing.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Questions for our district attorney?
We need this tonight, don't we?
Need to move this forward too, right?
So you do it?
Need to move it forward to the voting session as well?
Yeah, I guess if it needs a vote,
It says
To do
due
that.
to grant deadline.
Yep,
yeah,
says that on there.
yeah.
Ah,
And there's some signing of some paperwork that you have to do that's been
Mhm.
passed on that
Okay,
you probably have.
keep up the good work.
Thank you so much. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Katie.
Y'all good with moving that one as well,
Yeah,
right?
I did have a second request. It's for a psychiatrist to deal with the citizens who have aggressive driving. We could use that problem.
We'll get that next.
Can I avail myself of those services? I need it.
All right. Move on up to the presentation of FY 2022 COVID relief funding request. Emergency Service Director Danny Thompson. Danny.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. So the presentation before you, as you're aware, we're still in an ongoing COVID pandemic, 2 years plus.
Surely not.
And yes, and with that, the Board of Commission was gracious enough back on August 27th, 2021, to approve $100,000 to be able to fund employees and not have to utilize their PTO. They were essentially, we approved 80 hours for the employees who presented a positive COVID test. So fast forward, obviously, we had some discussion as the first of the year rolled around, myself and finance. And I have to say that finance has been fantastic to work with in this, to kind of clarify a few points, because we wasn't sure if everything had to come back before you all, or is it really a continuation? So Vicky really helped kind of clarify that. When the presentation before you, when I presented it on, or should I say, got it together on the 29th of December, we were already at $33,000 and some change left of that 100,000. Now, obviously, when we asked for that money at that time, we really had no idea how much is it going to cost us a pay period. And so now looking at it, we know that on average, monthly, we're spending between $20,000 and $23,000 a month right now. So with that, we're in the midst of seeing a huge spike, to include all of our county employees. It seems like of recent, I think I've tested a lot of them lately. But with that, we recognize the fact that we're going to run out of this funding that we set aside from August 27th. And what we're asking the board is to take some of the ARPA money that's out there, apply $120,000 of that into that, approve it, allow us to continue to offer. And one of the things we didn't think about the first time when we came to you is we got several different classifications of employees. We have the 80-hour employee, we have the sheriff's office who are 84-hour employees, and then we have the emergency services staff that are 96 hours. So, and actually, my hat's off to Vicky because she caught this when I put it together. We're asking that if approved, that the 40-hour employee would be given 80 hours of leave once a calendar year for right now. The 84-hour employee would be given 84-hour, and the emergency services or 96-hour employee would be given 96. And that way we're kind of comparing apples to apples as far as that goes. And that's what we're asking for. And again, I'm not going to tell you that we won't be back before you by the end of the year saying we're out of the 120, but we're trying to base it on the months that we've had and just kind of some projections to come up with the 120,000. I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Questions for Chief Thompson?
And
with the guidelines, is the way that the CDC's been changing them, have y'all been able to get people back to work any quicker or?
Well, I think that the CDC's probably caused me more headaches than they did good. And I'll say, because they pushed out the guideline of 5 days. Well, the 5 days is if you're positive with no symptoms. The problem is most of our employees are testing positive with symptoms, because most people who don't have symptoms are not getting tested. So they don't know that they're positive. So if you're positive with symptoms, you're still 10 days. So, obviously, we work with the county manager, and for those employees who can work remotely, and during the pandemic, obviously we closed county government employees here. There's a lot of them that can work remotely. So they don't have to dip into this money. But there are some that when they get sick, they're so sick that they can't work from home. And unfortunately, there's numerous departments, whether it be facilities, parks and rec, the sheriff's office, the fire and EMS, public works. Unfortunately, you're probably not going to let my people take a fire truck home. Probably not going to let them take one of the dump trucks home. So with that, the work from home, it won't apply to them. And so we have to have this to, kind of keep the ball rolling and keep the employees taken care of. And look, my hat's off to you guys for approving it back in August of last year. So thank you.
Other questions?
The funding comes from where?
We've still got some of that ARPA money to fund it out of. About 130,000, what we still got, Vicky? So we can fund it out of that. Other questions for Chief Thompson?
Do you think you get over this quicker if you don't keep trying to work and push through? Because a lot of people, they go home, they still feel fairly good and they just keep working. Does that extend the time that you want to get better? Have you?
I'm not going to give an opinion on that.
Well,
know,
why not?
Well, I think I will tell you that in the last 25 days where we've really been hit with the Omicron virus, we've had a lot of employees who had very, very minor to mild symptoms.
Mhm.
And if COVID wasn't in the picture right now, those same employees would likely still be at work. I guarantee you, if I turn to the county employees back here and said, take COVID off the table, how many of you, by a show of hands, has come to work sick?
Mhm.
I venture to say that most of them out there.
Yeah.
Probably I could ask, how many of you out there have come to work sick and had a bag of medication? Taking antibiotics. But now we fast forward to COVID, and we're encouraging our employees to be truthful and say, hey, I'm sick. Don't come to work, because we don't want to spread it. We want to try to minimize, our downtime, because then it impacts our service delivery at every department. Not just my department. It's every service that we have that we offer. I didn't answer your question very well,
No,
though.
you're just being a politician. I see that.
Gave you the
And I'm
political
gonna talk to
view.
Greg about sitting outside of your driveway, making sure you get some heat
Now,
enforcement out there.
We need.
I picked up on that.
Family Parkway, because I'm afraid I'm gonna get ugly. I'm just bad. I hate it.
All right.
I know
Did I read that right, that you wanted us to vote on this tonight? Or can it wait?
much we got in there now?
It can wait till the next section, correct?
I
I think we've got enough money in there right now
All right.
to cover.
Just want to
a
make
few more
sure, because I knew you
payrolls.
had said, I read 33,000.
Yeah.
That should last to February 2nd, you think?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We hope.
All right.
Don't jinx
If
us.
not, we can do emergency requests. All right, you got the next one too, presentation of requests for funding for fire hydrants.
Yes, so Etowah Water is expanding some of their service delivery in the Harry Sosby, Blacks Mill, and Red Rider area. You see before you, they're installing 9,500 linear feet of a 12-inch main on Harry Sosby to Blacks Mill Road and to Dawson Forest Road. There will also be 3,400 linear feet of an 8-inch main installed on Blacks Mill to the Forsyth County line, as well as a portion of Pine Needle and Red Rider. We're requesting funding for the proposed addition of 17 new fire hydrants in the above listed service delivery areas. These additions provide valuable water in areas that have limited or no current water, we're requesting that the purchase of $81,430 be funded from fund balance. Etowah Water has waived their connection fees for the county and associated with this project at a cost of $2,040 per hydrant. And obviously, I always like to make this footnote. As you're aware, available water for fire suppression accounts for 40% of the county's ISO rating. So when we go through our ISO evaluations, water is one of the big ones.
Speaking of that, did we get the last one?
We have not got it back yet, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
I do anticipate that within the next few months, though.
Questions for Chief Thompson?
Well, will that affect our ISO rating? You know, it will.
It'll help us on the next time.
Yeah.
Well, and obviously, I'll build off what the chairman just said. So if we get our rating back and for whatever reason, let's say that they said the Harry Sosby Blacks Mill area was a 3X because it didn't have water. And now that these hydrants are installed, we actually have the ability to go back to ISO, submit that documentation for them, and they'll give us a reeval. They give you one reeval after they submit to you.
So you won't have to wait.
Correct. You won't have to wait five years later
Oh.
for your evaluation. They're every 5 years,
I believe there's a little bit of growth going on.
just a little bit.
Just, yeah.
Some of those aggressive drivers out there.
Yeah.
Other questions for Chief Thompson? All right, we'll move on. Presentation request to accept Georgia Child Passenger Safety Mini Grant. Chief Thompson, you got that one too.
Yes, sir. This is a ongoing grant that the fire department has enjoyed for many years. We received notification that we had been awarded. It's a zero match. There's no cost to the taxpayers. We receive the standard 6 convertibles and 4 highbacks a month. And these seats are offered to Dawson County residents who meet those financial assistance requirements. Also, the Department of Public Health has a mini grant that's very, very similar to this one. And I do need the kind of the approval to go ahead and
Okay,
move this to the voting session.
Chairman.
And I'll answer any questions.
sir.
I would add that if Chief Thompson would explain the difference between a convertible and a high back for
I
those
was wondering the
that
same
don't
thing.
know
You
what
I've
that
got my
is.
mind on
Okay.
cars, but this is not
It's not cars and chairs, but I
Highback
would like
is
to see
essentially-
essentially-
Thompson
It's the bigger of the
clarify.
2 seats. And then I always used to refer to the convertible as the booster seat. Kind of.
Oh,
Does that make sense?
yeah.
Mr. Headley was going to have to potentially fill in for me, so he had to get a crash course
Oh,
and convert. Oh, I thought, sorry, I didn't mean to throw him under the bus.
Any other questions for Chief Thompson? So y'all good with moving that one forward too? So we get the
Is
free
it to
seats?
accept the grant?
It is, it's to accept. We've already
Get the
been
free
awarded.
seats.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Next up, presentation 2022 election qualifying fees for local offices. I don't think Ms. Glenda's here, but she did send over the information. Ms. Vicky, you going to talk about that at all? If you don't mind, just kind of go over I think we got 2 commission seats that are up this time and a couple of seats with the Board of Education. And we have to set the qualifying fees for those. And so I won't steal all your thunder, Ms. Vicky. I'll let you say the rest.
You're doing a great job. Good afternoon. As the chairman was saying, there are 4 seats that are up for election this year. And so we have to advertise those qualifying fees before February 1st of each year. So the way it's calculated, it's a percentage of the salary, the base salary of the elected position. So it looks like all 4 of these positions, their qualifying fee will be $288. So that's really,
We need to move
All
that
there
forward
is.
as well, so we can get that
yes, yes,
advertisement
so it
in.
can be done and advertised and everything.
Okay. Questions for Ms. Vicky?
These are the same amount.
Yes, ma'am.
It's 3%, I believe, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
3% of the-
3% of the base salary.
Sal? Yeah. All right, thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Next up, presentation of single stream recycling budget. Public Works Director Denise Farr. Denise.
Afternoon, Commissioners, Mr. Chairman. Do I have presentation? Do I have to have? Okay.
It's okay. We appreciate Ms. Harmony filling in
Yes.
today. Just take your time. It's okay.
Oh, there we
There
go.
you go.
Yeah. Yes.
You
well,
got it.
I'm
It's all right.
coming before y'all tonight to request direction concerning the county single stream recycling program. The program presently accepts cardboard, paper, plastic, number 1s through 5 and number 7s, glass bottles and jars, and aluminum and metal and tin cans. Our residents are allowed to, because of that process, they're allowed to choose a combination of any of these recyclables and place them in one container, one garbage bag. Bring that bag to the transfer station where it's deposited into our recycler bin and compacted.
Mhm.
It's very convenient. And presently, we are under contract with Waste Management. We had a contract with them in 2021, and we're working towards an upgrade for 2022. They are providing the receptacle, the 40 cubic yard container. They are also providing the hauling to the materials recovery facility where the container is weighed, the recyclables are dumped into a conveyor system, and the system pulls the recyclables out, and then they are manually separated and sorted for process. Oops, sorry. The pros and cons to the system, of course, it encourages recycling because it is convenient. They can put all their recyclables in one bag rather than have 6 or 7 containers at their homes for each individual recyclable item. And at first, it does have a lower upfront cost for municipalities. The cons to it is that it has a lower quality and number of reusable recyclables at the end of the sorting process. We do have contaminated waste, unfortunately, in this process. But there's higher cost associated with the sorting, the processing, and the hauling. And the materials do not always separate correctly. And I think that's because we compact them here at the center. So it's harder for the processors to pull those apart. Here again, accepted single stream recyclables here in the county is the cardboard, paper, glass bottles and jars, plastics. We do accept a great deal of plastics, number 1 through 5 and number 7. And the aluminum products, aluminum foil pans, pies, tins, tin cans, and steel cans. I thought it may be interesting to the board to see what the surrounding counties are doing in regards to the recycling program. Pickens County and Forsyth County uses a source separation processes where they have individual bins for each type of recyclable material that they're going to use. Hall County is a little different. They own their own landfill. They also have 13 locations to deposit household trash and recyclables. They do both source separation as well as single stream separation, and they have their own materials recovery facility there at Hall County, and their employees actually do the separation.
They got more help than you do.
Oh, wow. They have got quite an endeavor there. It's a money-making setup. Our contractual cost last year, 2021, the 40 yard container was $105 rental fee for the container. That also included the transportation cost to the materials recovery center. This year, it's gone up to $150 per month, and they've separated the rental fee from the hauling fee. So now it's $325 in addition every time we haul it to the recyclable facility, which is about 8 times a month. Our processing fees went up 30 cents, not a whole lot, but that's per ton. But our contamination fees did go up considerable amount from $45 a ton until $150 a ton.
Let me ask you a question right there.
Yep.
In reference to contamination. So if the bin itself, when they come get it, has contamination in it, does that get rid of the whole bin?
It does.
Okay.
And what happens is it goes to the recovery center, and as they're sorting it, it's weighed. So let's say we have 2 tons.
Mhm.
It's weighed, it's distributed, and they're sorting it. Halfway through, if they find contamination, they stop and they charge us 2 tons worth of contamination. And then they take the rest of that and haul it to the landfill. So, yeah. And
That's what I thought.
and the biggest contamination that we're seeing is household trash and diapers. I think people come, they have the same kind of trash bag, and in one trash bag, they've got household trash or diapers, and they just inadvertently put the wrong bag in the wrong container. And that's what a lot of the contamination that we're seeing.
Well, food products, excuse me, if you've got a pizza box of
Yes,
grease in it, it contaminates it too.
it does, and they just discard it. They don't use it. In 2021, our budget for recycling was $13,000. We were invoiced $18,090, and we recycled 242 tons, a little over 242 tons,
So we lost
5,000.
5,000 last year.
Last year.
And what's the percentage total? I didn't add those up of the charges this year more than what we charged us last year. Is what?
Well, you got $45 on one, 325 on one, 30 cents. and
Well, I have
then
a next slide.
Oh,
$100 something dollars.
The 20,
Yeah.
I'm getting ahead of it.
Pretty good
uh,
chop.
Yeah, the 2022 cost, we have $1,500 a month rental fee for the container, no matter how many times it's transported in and out of the transfer station. That equates to a little over $1,800 a year. And then we have the $325 per trip. We're 7 to 8 times a month. So if I estimate 300, which is what I did, 300 tons next year, we did a little more than 242 this year. That equates to $31,200 a year. Quite a jump. Our processing for 300 tons a year, a little over $8,000 a year. And then I estimate 8% contamination, which would equate to $3,600 a year. When you add all that up, that's $44,622 a year. We still have a $13,000 budget in 2022.
So we're in the rear 30-something thousand.
$31,662.
Mhm.
Yes. And so my last slide is direction and recommendation from the board. Do we proceed with the recycling program that we have? If we do, then Public Works would respectfully request an increase in budget. Or do we defer till we find something that is more economical, a different type of recycling project or program?
Well, I don't think we would want to just up and abruptly stop taking recycling at the moment. But we do try to look at what our options are
Yes.
and present those options, whenever we can. We may need to take a look at where people put the different type of recycling in
The
different
source separation.
source separation, as you call it. Because it's very easy to see how it can be contaminated in a single source.
Yes.
Because you were nicer than I probably would be when you was talking about the diapers. They probably know the difference. They just know this don't cost anything, this does. So it's easy to throw that bag in the recycling bin or to tell the man that gets out of your car that that's a recyclable because he's not opening it, taking a look at it.
Well, you can't see through the bags.
Can't
either,
see through the
so
bag.
You don't have any idea.
So, my recommendation to the board would be that we don't stop taking recycling because I think that would be a bad approach. But that we look at all of our options and then present those whenever is, whatever's feasible time frame, present those options back to the board and how that affects the cost.
So you'd like to see a source separation option? I can do that.
I think so. I think that would give us a better, especially a better less contamination rate.
It would be.
And, you'd have cardboard, you'd have cans, you'd have glass. I mean,
You said all that can be thrown in the same bag?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Now
ma'am.
it is.
I never did look at, cause boy, I wash and I separate.
It's all in the same bag, and then that bag is compacted and then separated. And sometimes the compaction, especially with the metals, they can't can't get everything apart. So some of that is ending up in the landfill that really shouldn't be.
I think y'all do pretty good to only have 8%.
Yeah.
Contamination with the way it's set up.
We may have
Now.
more next year. I was trying to,
Yeah,
we just don't know.
yeah.
She's been,
It's what we tried the source point separation before. What, and Dave may remember that.
I was just getting ready
Okay.
to say that the chairman may recall that we used to do the separation before the single stream came on board, but I think probably they're looking a lot closer now. You may recall in previous presentations is that the expenses were going up because there wasn't any place that was really purchasing like they did before. So they're getting a little more creative and a little more expensive as to disposal.
Yeah, that was
But,
my
we did have
question.
the single stream,
Yeah.
I mean, the separation before. To your point,
Wasn't-
Commissioner.
If we separated, some of it we get no money for,
That's
like
correct.
glass, and, I mean, nobody's buying glass now, and I was thinking if we separate it, we're gonna have to end up throwing it in the landfill.
Well, we're not getting any money from our recyclables now. And if we separate it, I have talked to Pickens County, and they will take certain recyclables. We have to haul it there and dump it. We wouldn't be getting any money for that, but they have such a large volume that they, and their contracts, they keep up with the economy, that they are making a little bit of money.
But the only thing people are paying anything for now is cardboard,
Mhm.
if it's not contaminated.
If it's not contaminated. And a lot of that's education, and we would have to have, at all these sites, there are manned sites, and they are there for education purpose and to watch to be sure that contamination does not happen, or try to limit it as much as possible. So that's
What
another,
contaminates, excuse me, cardboard besides grease,
it is just the grease
just
usually.
grease.
It's
So if I
some-
order something and I get a clock in a box and I take that clock out and that box is just as pretty as it was when I got it, I've not done anything. I can break that down and you'll take that.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. If it has food in it, it
Contaminated.
contaminates it, the grease. Food.
You know, and I just think we just have to watch this because, I mean, we got a lot of trash on the roadways anyway. And people throw a lot of stuff. They think, well, here's a bunch of woods. Phew, nobody's here. It's late at night. You don't want to throw this bag.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what worries me. I mean, I see stuff like that on the side of the road and in the woods.
Yes.
And I'm afraid people be more apt then saying, well, you know, it's gonna cost us a lot or what up. And they'll just throw it anywhere.
I'm glad you brought that up because the next presentation has the tire recycling. We don't
Oh,
make
me,
any,
I was gonna mention tires, but I didn't because I can see a hole right now where there's a lot of tires. There's just pull over and everybody does their business right there.
so I don't really want to see that disappear because we do have a lot of folks bring their tires in. And if they don't bring them in, we're going to be going out and picking them up. So
Mhm.
even though we don't make any money off of that, I would really be hesitant to stop that. Now, we can maybe change the way operational we receive those tires, but I would not want to eliminate that part of recycling.
I wouldn't either.
Mhm.
David, didn't most of this used to go overseas? This
It did. You
recyclable
may
stuff?
be, again, recall previous conversations where I guess a lot of this was being purchased by China,
Yes.
the Chinese, and now warehousing is, there's a lot of product that's being warehoused here in the United States that's not going overseas anymore. So that's another reason why it's driven the costs up. So
And what happens to it? It just sits somewhere?
it just sits there until they can figure out where to get rid of it at.
And then we talked about that, how much that costs to store it. You know, you're just paying for garbage.
Yes, ma'am.
you know, so.
But if anyone wants to see what a source separation look like, I'd recommend going to Pickens County. They, right down the road, they have a really, really
We talked about that after the
nice
first of the
setup.
year.
Yes.
We talked, yeah,
Yeah, if
because
y'all
I'd
would-
love to, I'd love to see that
I'll
and
make it a-
see what they're doing. But I know you said it was really, got a really expensive facility and
Mhm. but it sure is nice to visit. I know
Uh-huh.
Dave's told me not to get my hopes up, but it's very nice. So I can call and make an appointment and we can schedule if anyone wants to
Yeah.
go down there and look at it.
I'd love to see it because like I said, I can just envision more and more trash on the roadways. And I don't want that.
If I might, Chairman,
Go ahead.
to your point, we tried the independent locations
Yeah.
with the trailers and things.
Oh,
And what
yeah.
eventually happened was they became overrun with trash and debris and furniture and
Mhm.
and a lot of contamination. Our staff was having to go through each bag and separate the trash from that. And obviously that's more time.
Yeah, that didn't work.
consuming And everything. And we were still having to pay the contamination fees. So we have tried that in independent locations.
And there got to be a lot of trash around the trailers.
Yes.
I
ma'am, it
know I
was-
picked up
I
some
think-
of it. Because I couldn't stand to see it.
Yeah, the chief's not here, but I'm sure he can attest to that at fire station too. We couldn't get to the dumpster because
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mattresses and stuff that got dumped.
Oh, man.
All right, so bring us back a little more information if that's all right with y'all.
Mm-hmm.
And,
I don't want to give up on.
No, we don't give up yet.
No.
No, I think it's a service that, we
Yeah.
need to provide if we can, but we still need to be as cost effective,
That's possible.
as possible with it.
I have enough budget for almost 4 months, so I'll try to get something back to you before.
All right,
For that.
that'll work.
Okay.
All right, I think you got the next one too. Presentation of structural repair and refurbishment of transfer station.
I do. And as
Oh,
you're aware,
man, these
I know,
pictures.
they say a lot, don't they? As you're aware, we closed the construction and commercial dumping at the transfer station, and that was due to structural issues. I thought I'd start with just a brief overview of the operations of the transfer station. And that may help with some of the explanations for the structural issues. If you'll look on the left side there, you see the large green container that is our metal, recyclable metals. And we do make some revenue off of that. The larger cone area there is the construction and commercial dumping area. And then, of course, in the middle is our recycling bin from Waste Management. And then on the next picture, you see the smaller cones, and that is where we dump household trash. Well, it's supposed to be household trash, but sometimes the commercial kind of moves over into that area because we just have a lot of it. This, on the left-hand side, you'll see the concrete loading floor. And this is on the side where the commercial dumping is and construction dumping is done. And then there's steel plates. And then there's a hole for the dumping. And then you see the yellow cattle gate on the opposite side of the picture there. And on the other side of that cattle gate is where we do the household dumping. The next picture gives you an idea of what we deal with when we have commercial and construction dumping. You can see it's overflown into a little bit into the household dumping. Those trucks are so large. We also have a Mini X that has a thumb on it. It's just not for pushing. It's actually for picking it up and manipulating and moving it so that we try to do as least amount of damage to the facility as possible. And so here we start with the construction, the structural damage. This is underneath the steel plates that were just shown on the previous slide. You can see the steel beams, how they're moved, bowed inward. And that is from our Mini X's. They can get up to the concrete. We stop at the concrete. They can't go onto the metal plates. It's not load bearing enough for them. And they move the arm over to manipulate the trash. Or when they do, it's a blind spot. They can't see. So some of that damage is due to the operational of the Mini X's, and some of it's due to repositioning some of the construction material. We get truss systems with shingles still on the roof. We get cross ties. We get the fence posts that still have the concrete on the bottom of them. We get concrete where it's been busted up in driveways and patios, and we get a little bit of everything. Here again, this is the same pictures. It kind of gives you a view, a little closer view of the steel plates and the warping, and you can start to see the plate separation from the I-beams, which is, it's not a good thing. So And this is the cross beam here. You can see the damage that it's been caused, and that is all from materials being dropped on it, pushed and shoved, and impact force. Here is a steel plate that's right there at that cattle gate, the separation. And some of that I think may also, even though we try to pack it, it could be that some of the construction material is sticking up as the truck moves out. So that could also be the reason that that plate is damaged. That's a size 10.5 foot, just to have a little bit of reference there of what the gap is between the concrete floor and the steel plates. And that is one of the reasons why I asked for the station to be closed, because that gap within 2 weeks doubled. Next show, here again, the steel plates to the left, an example of commercial dumping. Now that commercial dumping is in the area where we do household dumping, but it's an overflow. We get so many trucks in at one time that we can't handle everything over in the construction area. So we have to have a place to put it. So people that bring their household trash with bags in their hands, they have to walk around that to dump. So we can get it out of the way. This is starting the exterior damage. You can see this, we have one steel column. The rest of it is concrete columns. It's bowing. I don't know if you can really tell that, but when you
I
put a
can't
level-
tell it in, I couldn't tell
Yeah,
it, but
when you put a level up to it, you can see where it's
Mhm.
bowed. Here again, from the internal, you can see where we've had problems with the metal siding, and the metal siding is attached to iron framework, iron gutters. And those are also twisted and bent. They're not as hardy as the steel I-beams, but they are steel. And they are bent and twisted as well. A little better view from the outside where you can see the exterior of the construction side, what construction dumping is done, and on the side of the building where it's just tore off. I took this picture hoping that you could see the steel beams or the where the siding is actually attached. You can see them, but you just can't see the damage, unfortunately, but they are twisted and bent as well. And then the repair recommendations, I'm sorry, I can't read that. I'm gonna have to flip through my. I did contact, I am an engineer, but I'm not a structural engineer. So I did contact Robinson La Jolla Roof, and they came out and spent a couple of days with me out here at the transfer station. They provided some preliminary redesign, and basically they said, if you're going to keep the system that you have, we're going to need to increase the size of some of the I-beams. We're going to have to put an additional column, steel column, and then made a few changes and few suggestions. But their concern was the same as mine. If we're going to keep the same operation, if we're going to accept commercial and commercial construction trash, we may want to look at other design structures changes. So they just went and looked at what we had and said, we're going to replace what you have with the best we can and update it. So the recommendations here for $120,000 was a cost estimate they gave me for just an estimate for the design. The estimated time frame, 3 weeks. The steel plate flooring would be included in the I-beams. That too would be a 3-week. They could do both of them together. The replacement of the siding and the siding supports was an estimate that James and I worked on because the engineers did not provide that. We thought about $25,000 to $30,000 to take 3 weeks. My recommendation was to eliminate construction and commercial dumping, limit it to drop-in dumping to household trash and tires. We do have some commercial dumping that they collect trash from the residents and it's household trash, which I think we could probably still continue with that, but no commercial dumping that had any large structural items. And we have that as well. If the construction commercial dumping is continued, we may need additional structural design as well as a change in the type of machinery that we're using. The machines that we're using at the transfer station now are really not designed for this purpose. And we've just tried to, in the past, make them fit. And that has not served us very well. You can tell by the damage, because some of the damage is caused from the equipment that we're using. Here again, I provide you an overview of what some of the surrounding counties are doing. None of the counties, Forsyth, Hall, or Pickens, except.
Can you go forward?
commercial. Oh, I'm sorry. Mhm. There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. None of the three surrounding counties except commercial or construction trash at their dumping sites. It's all at the landfill.
Can I interject?
Go ahead, Dave.
Not to cut you off, but
That's all
I
right.
just wanted to elaborate on that, is that some of the material that's being dropped off is typically classified for an inert landfill, which are concretes, those kind of things. And we have a facility here in Dawson that does take inert materials. So again, this material in many cases is for lack of a better description, hidden, so that it's hard to detect that until such time that the dumping takes place. And so, as Denise has said, that some of the other surrounding counties don't accept that at all. And at a minimum, we should at least provide some corrective action to folks that we do see do that, and provide some sort of penalty, if you will, for that process. And maybe that would help assist on cutting down that dumping.
We're not only having seen damage to the building itself, but our containers are being busted off pieces. We have holes. And what we try to do is we try to line the bottom of the containers. If we have mattresses or furniture or large bagged items, we put that on the bottom of the containers before we push in the commercial and the construction trash, because they just can't take the pounding. So we try to do the best we can with the materials that we have there, but that gives you an idea of what the surrounding counties will and will not accept. The next slide gives you an idea of the cost. Our weighted refuge cost is $44 a ton. Most of the other folks are above $60 and $65. They also have an increased cost for tires and mattresses and furniture, and not much, but a little. So it gives you an idea of what they're charging. This expenditures and revenues, I really struggled with this. I wanted to show what the 2021 costs were in addition to the pricing that I received in 2021 for the repairs, as well as some additional requirements maybe for equipment. So the landfill costs for last year were $212,105, and we processed a little over 7,000 tons. Our revenues were $272,532.69. Now, I got these numbers from finance, and I know y'all are still closing out books, but that's the latest numbers I was able to get. Our recyclables, as you saw in the last presentation, $18,090.70 with 242 tons of recyclables. Quality Tire, we don't receive any funds back, but as Commissioner Fawcett and I discussed, I would hate not to continue with this program. It costs us $17,372.40, and we have an estimated of 121 tons tires. Waste, 400 waste and material recycle, we did receive some revenue from them, well over $15,000. The transfer station repair that was in the beginning of the slide presentation, $145,000. We spent $16,000 last year repairing the two pieces of equipment that worked just in the transfer station. And we had a $60,000 budget approved for that. So I included that in here because we will use it in some manner. So then it gives you a total of the cost for probably more of 2022, but I had to use the 2021 numbers since we're just starting out in 2022 as compared to our revenues. Does anybody have a question on that slide? I know that might be a little confusing.
For the tire recycling, do we charge to take tires, or how do we?
We charge per tire.
Okay.
For different types of sizes. And we have several commercial tire companies that come in. We may get 80 to 100, and we're
Yeah.
out there counting them. So I had rather change that up if I can to weighted.
Mhm.
And then at least charge them what we're being charged. We're being charged $150 a ton. That doesn't include the employee cost or the wear and tear on the vehicle.
What about, is that revenue shown anywhere on this sheet that you,
Revenue.
from the tires, from us charging for the tires?
That would.
Would it be
uh,
included in the
It would be,
272?
yes.
Okay.
Is that a net? So that would be a net
Well, that's
cost.
net cost
In
for.
other words,
Which
the
one are we
cost to
on?
take the tires and then the revenue that we got from that subtracted from the overall cost. Is that the net cost, 17,000?
17,000 is what we pay Quality Tire
Okay.
to recycle the tires. That 17,000 doesn't include the cost of the employee or the truck to transport it.
Okay.
That's an invoiced cost. And we just received an increase back in August, I think it was, of $150 a ton. So the refurbishment recommendations is develop a protocol to ensure that dumping and recycling is restricted to Dawson County residents. We have a lot of out-of-county tags that come through our center. I had a gentleman from Lumpkin County come in and he tried to bribe me with some apple shine. So I have to say,
And you refused
I
that?
did refuse. I did
Oh.
refuse. Yeah, yeah. They just, Lumpkin County especially, they have some issues with their facility there, and Lumpkin County is in the process of revamping that. So we have a lot of residents from Lumpkin County and Gilmer. I had while I was out there the other day, I had a guy come through with a South Carolina tag on. So I don't really know where he was from, but his truck said South Carolina. To limit household trash to 10 bags a visit, assistance will be provided to the handicapped and elderly residents. We have a lot of residents that come in that will not get out of their truck. And we are busy trying to get other things done. So if they're capable, we would like to see them get out and take their trash out of their cars and dispose of it. Now, the elderly and the handicapped, certainly. We'd like to have a senior day, free trash every Wednesday, 2-bag limit for the seniors. We'd like to eliminate the single stream recycling and replace with individual, if it is economically feasible. And we would start small, maybe with paper, cardboard, aluminum cans, and grade 1 plastics. We could look at that. And then increase the cost for the disposal of mattresses, furniture, and recycling of tires. We're a little bit behind on the costs for those.
Well, that's why everybody's coming here.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
That's why let's go to Dawson County more. They're cheap.
Yes, we are.
Mhm.
Any questions?
Questions?
When was that facility built? In the 90s.
I think so. I know it's set for a while and it wasn't used for a few years after it was completed. But I don't know exactly when it was, you know,
I didn't mention in here, but we do have an issue with smell and rats. Let's be honest, the smell in the summer, we've had to put several fans out there in the summer because we can't get rid of the trash fast enough from some of the commercial and residential, commercial and construction trash, because it is so large that we have to move that out of the way to be able to get the residential in there. So that is another issue. I just didn't know how to show that on a slide.
So again, the cost, estimated cost was 468,000. Our revenue was 287. So we're in the rear about 180,000.
If we decide to go with the refurbishment of the transfer station, replace the I-beams and things of that nature.
I mean,
That included the cost of fixing it.
I mean, even if we continue with the household garbage, it's the structure's unsafe, it looks like. I mean, I'd hate to put an employee in there and
Well, those
possible
cones,
collapse of the building.
they're
Well, they-
not allowed in that coned area over there in the construction part.
I mean, you running heavy equipment vibrates concrete, which loosens, I mean, that's where you've seen that gap get wider, probably running that equipment in there.
Harmonics is real.
I don't know if the repairs, which we did structural engineer, look at that, if just repairing I-beams. The I-beams move for a reason and the concrete might not be thick enough or stable enough to have the I-beams.
I
on
think the I-beams have been pushed with the material as well as the equipment, and they're separating, pulling away from the concrete. We didn't see any issues with the concrete, and I had the guys, we stopped the dumping that day where we could get in there and the engineers could get in there with me and we could really look at it. I didn't see any cracks that concerned me, but the beams themselves, the warping, if they're moving, they wouldn't have warped as much. So they're warping and now moving. So that was
were y'all able to determine if there's any damage to that concrete beam that runs along the back that all that's mounted to?
We didn't see anything. But here again, we didn't do any non-destructive testing. It's all visual inspection.
Right,
I think the majority of that is it's pushing at the siding. And
Yeah.
those smaller iron trusses are the ones that are bending. I didn't see any damage, any nicks or cracking in
there, yeah.
the concrete. I mean, we could look again.
Because it wouldn't take much to bend the Z-bar that holds the siding up anyway. I mean,
Yeah.
there's nothing to that. I mean, it could, they could have been hit by some trash at some point, the construction debris with a 2x4 or something hitting it. If that to me, if the main support beam is okay, then it looks like it's just the metal structure that's
It is.
probably separating. I couldn't tell how it was anchored to the concrete from the pictures.
It looks like I don't know if I can get back. Let's see if I can get back. One of those. The I-beam is attached to the concrete flooring underneath the steel plate. That's anchored into the concrete. I know it's here somewhere. Oh, there it is. You just can't see the anchors, but the beam there is up against the concrete and it's anchored into the concrete flooring.
Okay.
Is the commercial causing up all this damage or
I think
most of the damage?
Construction
Construction.
and some of the commercial. And some of it, in all fairness, is the equipment, because the equipment we're using is really not made for this purpose. And we're doing it blindly because they're reaching over those steel plates and they can't see. And they can't get on the steel plates.
Mhm.
So they are inadvertently hitting those beams.
Mhm.
So do we need to do something in reference to the steel plates? I mean, when we shore that up to where
The
the
structure
help,
holding the plates is the problem too. I mean, it's moving.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Though, do we need something, David, do we need to shore that up so that we're not blindly reaching over trying to,
Well, I
Pat?
would direct Denise in that point to have that at least the structural person come out and determine if in fact they could scab it or do something along that lines, but for a temporary fix anyway.
The engineers that I had come out was not for design purpose. It was to
right, just to look at?
address the issues that we had and what we could do now to make it safe. And there's ideas, well, look, we're gonna have to beef up the beams because the beams are too small.
Mhm.
We're gonna have to replace these plates. We may have to add additional anchors, and we're gonna have to have another column because of the load. So,
But that's if I understand it correctly, that's completely separate from or mostly separate from the structure of the actual building itself, like the metal, the plates that funnel the trash into the trailers don't support the building in any way.
it does not,
Right, okay.
does not.
So it looks like it's just
It's a loading platform.
right. So it would be, like, I don't think the building's gonna go anywhere, but if you start, it's not gonna be much longer. If you started using that again, that whole platform looks like it's gonna be in the trash trailer.
Well, and it's tied to those concrete beams outside on the
Yeah,
back.
And if you
Those
get to
I-beams
pulling on
are.
those, then that would be damaging the structure
It
of
would
the,
be. And
the
I don't know if
building.
the structure is damaged now or not, because like I say, we just looked visually. We didn't do
Visual,
any
yeah.
non-destructive
yeah.
testing, no sonogram ultrasounds or anything like that.
Yeah.
Well, should we try to get a deeper test to see where we really stand? What do you think, Emery? You're kind of an expert in this field.
As far as the building, I don't think that would be, I don't know what that would kind of test would cost, but I over the years of that vibration on the concrete that you can't see what it might have done inside, and we don't know what's inside it when it was built. I think we should try to do what we can to establish the structural integrity of the building itself. And then we can decide if we want to replace this. I would hate to replace this chute and then 2 years later, we decide that something was actually wrong with the
Yes.
building itself.
Yes. Mhm.
And And I don't know, we may want to look at other options. From my experience, this is more of an antiquated loading system anyway. A lot of the other transfer stations have different ways of loading the material. And this is something that's kind of gone by the wayside. So I don't know, even if we replace it, I don't know how much better shape we'll be in anyway, because it's like she's talking about, it's when you're trying to get the trash down in the trailer, you can't see what you're doing from the machine. Like you're basically just guessing, and it doesn't matter how good the operator is, they're going to hit that trailer, and it's just aluminum, and it's not going to take much to damage that trailer. Yeah. And it's
Engineers design for purpose.
yeah.
So the purpose of the transfer station, are we going to continue with construction and commercial dumping? If we are, the purpose of that transfer station's changed.
Yeah.
Compared in relation to the design.
Mhm.
So before we could get a structural engineer, we'd have to tell him what the purpose of the operation of that system is going to be, so he would be able to design. So I think we need, maybe, my opinion, to look at, are we going to continue with construction dumping? Are we going to continue with a larger commercial dumping? Because like Dave said, there's surprises under on the bottom sometimes when they dump, and you can hear it if you're out in the loading, even outside the loading area, and the heavier equipment or materials are on the bottom of that bed. When that stuff's dumped, you can hear it. The vibration is certainly there. So if we're going to continue with that, then we're going to have a whole different design in mind.
How long has it been closed? This part been closed? I remember. we got it
January 1st, wasn't it?
January. What have people been doing in the meantime since it's closed? Where?
They go to Forsyth County, Eagle Point, or they go to Hall County, or I guess to Pickens. Pickens
Y'all
has a
think that
landfill.
construction material-
We do. Yeah.
Maybe.
They go to Wallace. Probably.
But it's and that's what we need, to decide. I just don't want to, it looks like we're losing a lot of money on it, and I don't want to, the taxpayers shouldn't be paying for commercial people to make money, is the way that I look at it. Now it's a different story for the residents. I think it's a
Right.
valuable service that we need to provide, because it's like Sharon said, if we don't have that there, it's gonna be on the side of the road somewhere, and it's gonna cost us more in the long run. But I think we need to figure out what direction we want to go with the facility.
Have y'all seen an increase in your business since
Not-
this is?
Not that I could really tell,
Okay.
but I've not, it's still only been a couple weeks, and it's with the weather, the way that it's been, it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
Anyway, and typically things are slower around this time of year because of the weather and stuff. So it's hard to say one way or the other right now. Because I don't know how much were y'all taking commercial a day or a week? Do you have an idea?
I don't have an idea. I'm sorry. I just looked at we don't separate.
Yeah, so it's just what y'all volume.
Did you say most of this needed to go in an inert landfill anyway?
Well, some of the material does, yes, ma'am.
Some of it, okay.
I mean, that's
Stuff
what-
like that can-
Okay, and who has, is that Birds? Who
Yes,
has
ma'am.
that?
And
Okay, so there
Mr.
is,
Newman.
if we stop doing it, there is a place for them to go. But it's more
Yeah.
expensive, I'm sure.
Everywhere's more expensive.
Yeah,
Well,
I
it's-
know it. That's
it's
why-
actually-
400 too, Lumpkin's got
It-
one.
If you've got concrete or something, it's actually cheaper to go to the inert landfill, because you're paying by the load instead of by the ton. So if you've got a load of concrete that's at $50 a ton, and there's 10 tons, that's $500, when you might could dump the same thing at an inert landfill for $100.
Oh,
So it's
okay.
just, but if it's mixed, those facilities won't take them, and they'll charge basically a contamination fee if you dump it out and there's trash in there, because they're not allowed to take anything that's been, they can take tree debris, but they can't take processed lumber.
Yeah,
So
that's
it's,
right,
it's a different, you have to
yes.
be careful as to what you take. And I think that's why a lot of people, they just throw it all in one thing and want
Yes.
to dump it out somewhere.
It's more convenient.
But it's,
Seems like to me, we're just going to have to stop this.
We already have, so we need to continue that obviously for now until we figure out what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
yeah, because it doesn't like it would take but a couple more weeks and it would be in a lot worse shape than it is now if you continued using it.
So,
I think too, and to Denise's point, it's already moving since she's been doing this.
Yeah.
It's
over the
already
last few
what?
weeks. It's already moving. The separation has gotten larger just in the last few weeks.
Yeah,
Now,
it looks a
when
lot
it
different.
fails, we don't know, but
It looks a lot different now than when I went, was a couple months ago.
October, November,
Yeah.
when we were out there.
Yeah,
October, I
it
think
looks,
was.
it's a lot, because the separation wasn't that bad
Put
at
a sheet
all.
of paper or two in between.
Yeah.
It wasn't,
Yeah,
Yeah. How big's that separation now?
well, Eddie's a
You said
10 and a
10
half,
and a half.
so.
10
yeah.
and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
10.5
You gotta
inches.
split it
Oh,
across it.
inches?
Yeah, 10.5
Oh.
inches.
used Eddie's foot.
1 foot.
In October, you can slide a piece of paper in there.
Okay.
So it's moved that much.
All right, so in your opinion, from getting the engineer report, if we did the $120,000 plus the 25, which the 25 is basically just a sheet metal on the outside, which is neither here nor there in reference to the structure itself. But the 120, do they feel like the 120,000 would do the safety that we're looking for? That's what I want to know.
Well, Their
And
question.
with the elimination of the construction.
Oh, with elimination. Now this, when I had to come out, this was a $3,000 visit,
Mhm.
$2,999 visit. And my reason for having them is because I was worried about the structural integrity and
Right.
someone getting hurt. So they did a preliminary design just so they could give me a
So we would have
cost.
to have another design.
We would have to
It's
have.
kind of visual, wasn't it?
I
Yeah.
made all of us twitch when we saw it. Yes, when we looked at it.
That's something we'd have to send out, so.
Yeah,
Yes,
so we probably need to
we'd have to do a design build.
look
RFP.
at that. I mean, we want to be safe, obviously. and obviously
Yes.
Stay where we're at now in reference to just taking household garbage and stuff like that. And then move forward if it's the desire of the board. To look at that more deeply. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, we send it out and get a
yeah.
design bill on.
Because I mean, even if we did quit taking the commercial, it would still be nice to be able to take if a resident had a, just a pickup load of stuff. If they could dump it out, because that may cause some issues, if it's not all bad. I know back, I can't remember the exact dates, but we went to like an all bag type thing and that didn't go over very well. Because, a lot of people have cleaning up around their house, they have a pickup load of stuff and they want to bring all of it. And it's not commercial waste, but it's not all bagged either. So I think that's something we need to keep in mind when we do this, that if we're going to just limit it to residents, we need to be a little bit broader with what we take like that.
Yeah.
We've
That's
had
good.
residents bring in cross ties.
Yeah,
We've had them bring in wire fences.
yeah,
that they take up around their pool and things. So you're right. It may be a resident, it's not really a commercial dumping, but it would be items that we probably would not want to take.
yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? So do we want to move that forward to a vote to put some kind of, so that they can go ahead with some kind of a design?
Yes.
Move that to the voting session, that particular thing, so that they can put that out? Don't do that? Okay. All right.
You okay with that, Melissa? Okay.
All right, so we're gonna wait on number 10. Matt had made a request and that they're still waiting on some information, so we'll pull that and that'll come up at a later date. We'll move on to number 11, presentation of a resolution supporting changes to Georgia's annexation law. Ms. Davis.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this is an item that was presented to the county at the end of last year. It rises out of the fact that there was a study committee that was created at the General Assembly to look at all the issues presented by annexations in the state of Georgia. And I think fortunately you've not had a ton of annexation issues, but we've had one not so long ago that did produce quite some angst, and you saw firsthand some complexities with that process, and how the procedures themselves make it really hard to really even have a cooperative approach with developers and the municipalities because of just the timelines and the way things work and the limited authority DCA has to provide us with any kind of opportunity to have a continuance or a stay while we try to work things out. It's a very narrow, constrained process that really, in some respects, has some deadlines that really make it difficult to be functional. So the study committee has focused on those things and has a set of recommendations they are presenting to the General Assembly in this new session. Unfortunately, I would love to have seen the study committee go even further and wish we had more work on the substantive provisions, because as counties, we have very little authority when it comes to annexation. So just don't want to get your hopes up that that's looking to change drastically, but what they are looking to do is to work on these procedures, which would make it a much better, more manageable process. So the resolution that's before you has been prepared and presented to us from ACCG. They've asked us to sign and approve and get back to them just to show support for the study committee's work. They did ask us to send this at I think the end of last year, but our meeting schedule was such that we are.
I think a January 10th
Oh,
deadline,
was that it? Okay.
which was the first day of the session.
Right. And so, but I don't believe it's been presented yet. So I still think this will be timely and they will present it and be happy to get this from us. We'll make sure that they receive it quickly if this meets with your approval and is approved and executed. So by virtue of that, and because of the timeline, I would ask that it be removed to the voting session agenda for your consideration.
Questions for Ms. Davis?
But how do we support if we don't know what the guidelines are?
Well, that is an interesting thing. They did not provide us with the detailed report as an attachment to this resolution. I have seen it. And I would say there's nothing in there that causes me concern. All of it is for the benefit of Georgia counties, or else ACCG would not be pushing so hard to ensure support of it. It just, as I said, just didn't go quite far enough, unfortunately.
Will it help us a little with the city annexation?
Well, it will. And if approved, I mean, all of this is just, because as much as we are pushing one side of this issue, of course, GMA is likely pushing the other side of the issue. So I think that's why ACCG is asking Georgia counties to show support and show that we're interested in this issue. So, at the end of the day, and I was engaged a couple of times throughout the process and asked questions and actually sent a lot of written materials with suggestions and details about how some of the procedures don't work. Some where those were picked up and some were not. But at the end of the day, I think it's progress, even though it may not be all we want. And that when ACCG is supportive of it, it's in our interest as a county. So
It's a starting point.
it's a starting point, and hopefully we'll continue to take some momentum, particularly if, the General Assembly sees that you've got all these counties that believe it's a problem, because that's part of it. Is there's a statutory process that was set up, and they need to hear from Georgia counties that it's a problem. And that's why, that's somewhat of what this resolution says, that we have an interest and a concern in this being improved. So that could be persuasive to then try to get this step and then another step forward.
That's a start, at least get us to the table,
That's
because
right.
in the past, they've shied away from it. They wouldn't make a decision or help us in any way.
Right. Whenever it's an issue where it's the GMA versus ACCG as a lobbying matter, cities versus counties, I think the General Assembly tends to try to shy
They
away.
got voters in both.
That's right. That's right. That is right.
All
So
right.
thank
you, ma'am.
So we'll move that to tonight. Is that?
Y'all good with that?
Yes, I
Okay.
am.
All right. All right, move on to presentation of board appointments. Board of Health, Kay Parrish, a reappointment, January 2022 through December 2027. I have the pleasure to serve on the health board for the county with Ms. Parrish. She does an outstanding job for us, and I would make a recommendation that she continue. Next, we have the Chattahoochee Resource Conservation and Development Council. Sharon serves on that for us, as well as Mr. George Lyons. Both of them do an outstanding job for us and representing us. And it's amazing what all they do and talk about at these meetings. And so I would make a recommendation that they continue to do that as well, and appreciate both of their willingness to serve on those. So we move on to the county manager report. David?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, Commissioners. The key indicator report for the month of December, as well as a list of agreements and contracts, is in your packet. Be glad to answer any questions you may have on that. The county sent the wire last week to pay off the fire truck that was purchased through the ACCG lease purchase plan in January of 18. This debt was paid off using SPLOST 6 funds as planned in the budget for this year. We paid it off early as the original payoff day was January the 12th of 25, saving interest in the amount of $11,969.39 by paying it off early. The fleet services has an inspection every 2 to 3 years from EPD, Underground Storage Tank Division. We passed our inspection with flying colors. All paperwork and reports were in order, and the fuel facility was in physical compliance. It's one of those areas that we just pull up to the pump and pump the gas and don't even think about what's going on, but there is some heavy EPD regulations that have to be followed, and Shannon's done an outstanding job and his staff on doing that and keeping the fueling center running. And so we wanted to make you aware of that. We had a little winter precipitation. Everybody, some of the folks were in bed nice and warm. I do want to acknowledge both public works staff and EMS for their outside efforts. While Public Works went to go get some of the downed trees and things, they come to find out that EMS had already been out there and cleared some of that for them. So it was a joint effort, not only by them, but staff and the citizens for staying off the roads and letting everybody do their work. The Public Works Department had been out there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. At 3 o'clock in the morning, they were back at the Public Works facility inside, getting ready to go again. So it was a joint effort, and they need to be commended on that. Want to also introduce to you our new county marshal, Matthew Haley. He began with us on January the 3rd of 22, just recently, and has hit the ground running. He also started as a supplemental employee, I think, to Hall County, and he can talk to that. But I'd like to introduce him to him, let him just say a couple words to you and get your knowledge.
Come on up.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Matt Haley. I recently come from Hall County, working for Superior Court. Just a little bit about me, an introduction. I grew up in Southeast Arkansas, and around middle school to high school, my parents decided to move us to South Georgia, where I met and married my high school sweetheart. We have 3 kids. I'm a U.S. Coast Guard veteran, so we moved around a good bit. Also have 15 years of public safety experience and a master's degree, criminal justice and public administration. So,
Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
thank you.
Yes.
Welcome aboard.
Yes.
Glad to have you.
Chairman, Commissioners.
He's
Good to
already
meet you.
done an
Said you're running,
outstanding
get some
job.
track shoes.
Pardon me?
These track shoes.
Yeah, he's already done an outstanding job, and we're glad to have him on board. That really completes my report. Any questions?
Questions of the county manager? County attorney report.
I do not have a public report. I do have a litigation matter that we could discuss in executive session.
And we will do that after the voting session then.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All righty. And with that, that concludes a very long work session, which we hadn't met in about a month, so
That's
that could
right.
be anticipated.
That's right.
What we'll do is we'll take about a 5-minute break, and we'll be back immediately after that for our voting session. So about a 5-minute break, and we'll be back. Thank you for your attendance, as well as those here and online. And with that, we will be adjourned for 5 minutes.